Let me start with a question. Have you ever noticed that the things we keep to ourselves often say more about us than the things we actually say out loud? See, here's the truth. In relationships, we spend so much time worrying about what to do, what to text back, how to flirt, what turns someone on, that we forget that sometimes what we don't reveal is what keeps the attraction alive. When most people think about intimacy, they jump straight to physicality. They think it's about knowing the right moves, the right touches, the right words whispered in the right moments. And yes, of course, those things have their place. But here's the secret most people miss. Intimacy doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins in the way you show up in the everyday moments. It's how you give, how you listen, and how you make someone feel seen long before you ever touch them. You can master every physical technique in the world, but if the emotional connection is missing, it will always feel shallow. On the other hand, when someone feels that you're truly present with them, when they feel your energy, your focus, your willingness to give without expectation, suddenly even the smallest gestures become electrifying. That's why some people can do everything by the book and still leave their partner unsatisfied, while others who may not be technically perfect can make someone feel unforgettable. Think about the last time you had a conversation where the other person was completely locked in with you. No distractions, no scrolling on their phone, no half-hearted nodding, just pure focus. You probably walked away from that interaction feeling lighter, energized, maybe even a little intoxicated by the attention. That is intimacy in its purest form, because in that moment they gave you something rare, their undivided presence. The same principle applies in relationships. Intimacy is amplified by presence, not performance. When you're giving in a relationship, it's not about grand gestures or proving your worth through sacrifice. It's about being fully there when it counts. It's sending that supportive message before their big presentation. It's laughing at their silly stories like they're the most interesting person in the world. It's remembering the small details they shared weeks ago and bringing them up in conversation. These little acts of giving are far more impactful than any grand romantic stunt because they communicate, I see you, I value you, and I'm invested in you. Too often people confuse giving with losing themselves. They think giving means abandoning their needs to constantly serve the other person. But real giving comes from a place of strength, not depletion. When you're confident in yourself and happy in your own life, the love you offer doesn't come with strings attached. You're not giving in order to earn validation. You're giving because it feels good to enhance someone else's experience. And that kind of giving is magnetic. It makes people want to be closer to you, not because of what you're doing for them, but because of the energy you bring into their life. The irony is, the less we focus on trying to impress someone, the more powerful our impact becomes. People can feel when your attention is genuine versus when it's a performance. If you're going down the checklist of what should I do to make him like me, it comes across as forced. But when you're truly tuned into who he is, what excites him, what makes him feel secure, the giving happens naturally. And that's when intimacy becomes effortless. Here's the beauty of it. This type of giving is contagious. When you show up fully present, you create a space where your partner feels safe to reciprocate. They start to mirror your energy, they listen more deeply, they become more attentive, and suddenly the relationship stops being about who is doing enough and becomes about two people constantly fueling each other's fire. That's when chemistry reaches a whole new level, because it's no longer transactional, it's transformation. So the first thing to understand about giving in a relationship is that it's not about technique. It's not about how skilled you are in a particular area, and it's not about the size of the gestures. It's about the quality of your presence. The greatest gift you can offer someone is to make them feel like in that moment they are the only person in the world. If you can do that, intimacy will naturally follow. And the best part, you don't have to force it. Because when you're truly invested in someone, when you genuinely enjoy their presence, giving doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like the most natural thing in the world. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is putting the other person on a pedestal. It's so tempting, especially when you meet someone who seems impressive, charming, successful, or just overwhelmingly attractive. You catch yourself thinking, wow, I can't believe he's interested in me. And in that single thought, without realizing it, you've tilted the balance of the relationship. You've gone from seeing him as an equal partner to seeing him as someone you need to prove yourself to, someone whose approval you have to constantly earn. The truth is, attraction doesn't grow in worship. It grows in equality. If you see him as the prize and yourself as the one chasing, then you've already surrendered the dynamic. Relationships thrive when two people meet at the same level, when both bring value, both inspire each other, and both feel lucky to be there. The moment you treat him as above you, you unconsciously train him to see you as below him. Think about how energy shifts when you place someone too high. Maybe you start saying yes to things you don't actually want to do. Maybe you hold back your opinions because you're afraid of rocking the boat. Maybe you laugh at jokes that aren't funny or pretend to like things you couldn't care less about just to seem more appealing. Slowly, without even noticing, you're editing yourself to fit what you think he wants. And the problem is, the more you do that, the less he gets to know the real you. What makes someone magnetic isn't blind admiration. It's authenticity. It's standing in your truth, having your own passions, your own opinions, your own sense of value. When you're confident in who you are, you don't need to lower yourself to elevate someone else. You can admire him without worshipping him. You can be impressed by his qualities while also knowing that you bring just as much to the table. Imagine two people walking into a room. One walks in thinking, I hope they like me. The other walks in thinking, I hope we connect. Which one do you think has the stronger presence? It's always the second. Because they're not coming from a place of neediness, they're coming from a place of curiosity and equal footing. That's the energy that creates attraction. It's not desperation, it's balance. When you put yourself below him, you create a dynamic where you're the pursuer and he's the prize. And while that might sound flattering to his ego in the short term, in the long term, it erodes respect. Attraction fades when it feels one-sided, when one person is constantly proving their worth while the other just receives. The most powerful relationships are the ones where both people feel chosen, not where one person feels worshipped and the other feels replaceable. What's fascinating is that often the people we put on pedestals are just as insecure as anyone else. They may look confident, but inside they have doubts and fears like everybody else. When you elevate them too high, you don't connect with the real human in front of you. You connect with an image you've created. And the tragedy is, in doing that, you rob both of you of the chance to build something genuine. The most attractive stance you can take is to meet someone eye to eye, to appreciate their qualities without diminishing your own, to celebrate what makes them special, while also standing firm in what makes you special. That creates a dynamic of mutual admiration, not hierarchy, and that's where lasting chemistry comes from. Not from worship, but from recognition. So instead of asking yourself, am I good enough for him? Flip the question. Ask yourself, is he showing up in a way that's good enough for me? That shift in perspective doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you grounded. It keeps you from chasing validation and reminds you that love should be a two-way street. When you stop putting someone above you, you give them the gift of a real connection. Because only when you stand as equals can you create the kind of partnership where both people grow, both people give, and both people feel lucky every single day. And that's the kind of love that lasts. One of the fastest ways to kill attraction before it has a chance to grow is to overshare your entire relationship history too soon. We've all been there, on a date where the conversation suddenly turns into a confession. You start talking about your exes, the heartbreaks you've had, the betrayals, the lessons, the mistakes. And while it might feel honest, even cathartic, it often lands in completely the wrong way. Instead of drawing someone closer, it weighs the moment down with unnecessary baggage. The truth is, when someone is just getting to know you, they're not looking to understand your entire past. They're trying to figure out who you are right now. They're not auditioning to be your therapist. They're auditioning to be your partner. And those are two very different roles. When you unload every detail of your romantic history early on, what you think you're doing is building intimacy through vulnerability. What you're actually doing is overwhelming the other person with information they don't yet know how to process. Think about how you feel when someone on the first or second date starts telling you about their messy breakup, their cheating ex, or the long list of people who hurt them. Even if you're empathetic, a part of you starts to wonder, why are they telling me all of this now? Do they still have feelings for that person? Are they carrying wounds that haven't healed? What was meant to bring you closer instead plants seeds of doubt. Now, does this mean you should never talk about your past? Of course not. At some point when trust has been built, sharing pieces of your history is important. It gives context to who you are and what shaped you. The timing is everything. Vulnerability is attractive when it feels earned, not when it feels done. Revealing your entire story too quickly can rob the relationship of the excitement of discovery. Part of attraction is the slow unveiling of who you are, the little surprises, the gradual revelations, the sense that you're peeling back layers over time. That unfolding is what keeps someone intrigued. When you put everything out there immediately, you shortcut the process. It's like showing someone the final scene of a movie before they've even seen the opening credits. There's no build-up, no curiosity, no chance for them to get invested in the journey. Instead of focusing on creating new memories together, the relationship becomes tangled in old ones that don't belong to the present moment. There's also another subtle danger. When you spend too much time talking about your past relationships, you unintentionally make your current connection feel like a comparison game. He might start wondering, am I better than the last guy? Will I make the same mistakes? Is she still hung up on him? None of these questions foster confidence or closeness. They create insecurity and distance. The irony is many people overshare because they want to seem open and authentic. But authenticity doesn't mean putting your entire diary on the table. True authenticity is about being present, showing up as your real self in the moment, and letting someone get to know you through shared experiences, rather than long speeches about what you've been through. Instead of unloading your history, focus on living your story now. Share your passions, your dreams, your quirks, the things that make you excited about life. Let him see the version of you that's alive today, not just the scars of yesterday. If the connection grows, there will be plenty of time for deeper conversations about your past, but by then there will be trust and context to hold it. The right person doesn't need the full transcript of your history to decide whether they like you. What they need is to feel good in your presence, to enjoy your energy, to sense that you're someone who brings value and joy into their life. And when that foundation is strong, the past becomes just another chapter in the book you're writing together. So remember, intimacy isn't about rushing to spill every detail of who you are. It's about pacing, about allowing attraction to breathe. The more you give someone the chance to discover you piece by piece, the more invested they become. And when the time is right, sharing your past won't scare them off. It will only deepen what's already there. One of the most dangerous habits people fall into in relationships is tearing themselves down. It happens in subtle ways at first. Maybe you make a joke about how bad you look in the morning. Maybe you comment on your body in a negative way, saying things like, "Don't look at me, I've gained weight," or "I hate my stomach." Maybe you dismiss your own achievements by saying, "It's nothing really," when in reality it was a big accomplishment. On the surface, these might seem like harmless, self-deprecating comments, but over time they plant a seed in the other person's mind. The way you talk about yourself teaches someone else how to see you. Think about it. If you consistently show someone that you don't value yourself, why would they be inspired to value you? If you make it clear that you don't believe in your own worth, you set the tone for how they should treat you. Attraction is fueled by admiration, and admiration can't grow if you're constantly cutting yourself down. When you reveal contempt for yourself, even in small doses, you lower the respect in the relationship. There's a big difference between being humble and being self-destructive. Humility is attractive. It shows that you can laugh at yourself, that you don't take everything too seriously, that you're grounded. But self-contempt is different. Self-contempt is when you cross the line from humility into self-criticism. It's when every joke about yourself carries a sting of truth, and the person listening starts to wonder whether you actually believe you're not good enough. Confidence, on the other hand, is magnetic. It's not about being arrogant or pretending to be perfect. Confidence is about owning who you are, flaws and all, without tearing yourself apart in the process. When you can talk about your imperfections in a light-hearted way, but still radiate self-respect, you give off an energy that people are drawn to. It tells them, I know I'm not perfect, but I'm still worthy of love, respect and desire, and that is unbelievably attractive. Let's get real, everyone has insecurities, even the people who look like they have it all figured out, carry doubt. But the difference between those who attract lasting respect and those who don't is how they handle those insecurities. Do they let their insecurities dominate their words, their energy, their behavior, or do they acknowledge them privately while still showing up with confidence publicly? The way you handle this choice directly shapes the dynamics of your relationship. Imagine being on a date with someone who keeps pointing out their flaws. They say things like, "You probably think I'm boring," or "I'm not nearly as smart as you." At first you might try to reassure them, but after a while it becomes exhausting. Instead of enjoying their company, you feel like you're stuck in a cycle of constantly lifting them up. And here's the thing, no one wants to be in a relationship where their role is to constantly counteract another person's negative self-talk. What starts as compassion can quickly turn into burden. When you show respect for yourself, you make it easier for someone else to fall in love with you. They see your confidence, your light, the way you carry yourself with pride, and they're inspired by it. They want to be around that energy. They want to be part of it. You're teaching them without even saying it. This is how I deserve to be treated. But when you reveal contempt for yourself, you're teaching the opposite lesson. You're saying, don't value me too highly because I don't. And people, even good people, will often treat you at the level you set for yourself. That's why it's so important to protect the way you talk about yourself, both to others and to yourself in your own mind. Respect starts internally. If you want someone to see your worth, you have to lead the way. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak about yourself, the way you embrace your own uniqueness. It all sets the standard, and the person who sees that will not only admire you, they'll rise to meet you at that level. Because when you show the world that you are someone worth respecting, you give others no choice but to agree. One of the most tempting traps in a relationship is making someone your entire world. It often starts from a beautiful place. You meet someone you really like, you feel a spark, and suddenly they become the most exciting part of your day. You think about them constantly. You cancel plans to be with them. You shift your priorities so that everything revolves around them. At first it feels romantic, even intoxicating. But over time this dynamic becomes less about love and more about dependency. And dependency is the very thing that drains attraction. Here's the paradox. The very things that made you attractive to him in the first place were the life you had before he came along. Your passions, your friends, your independence, your routines, your sense of self. All of that created a person he was drawn to. When you abandon those things and make him the center of your universe, you start to lose the spark that caught his attention in the beginning. Instead of being the confident, multifaceted person he admired, you become someone who orbits entirely around him. That doesn't inspire passion. It creates pressure. Imagine this scenario. You start dating someone new, and from the second date on, they treat you like their only source of happiness. Every plan they make revolves around you. Every emotion they feel depends on your attention. At first you might be flattered, but quickly it starts to feel heavy. You realize that instead of being appreciated for who you are, you're being relied on to keep them afloat. That weight is more than most people can carry, and it makes the relationship feel suffocating rather than exciting. When you reveal to someone that they are your whole world, you unintentionally send a message that your life has no balance, and balance is deeply attractive. A partner wants to feel important, yes, but not at the expense of everything else in your life. They want to be a priority, not your sole purpose. When you give up your identity to merge entirely with theirs, you stop being a partner and start being an extension of them. That loss of individuality weakens both respect and desire. The healthiest, most magnetic relationships happen when two complete people come together to share their lives, not when two incomplete people fuse together out of need. When you have your own passions, friendships and goals,
You bring fresh energy into the relationship. You can share new experiences, new ideas, and new perspectives. You make the connection richer because you're constantly growing as an individual. That growth is what keeps things exciting. When someone sees that you have a world outside of them, it doesn't make them feel less important. It makes them value you more. They see that your time is precious, that your life is full, and that being with you is a choice, not a necessity. That choice makes your presence more powerful. It tells them, I have a fulfilling life, but I'm choosing to share it with you. That's far more attractive than, I have nothing else, so I need you to fill the gaps. There's also a subtle power shift that happens when you make someone your whole world. They begin to sense that you'd tolerate anything just to keep them around. And when someone feels like they can do no wrong, the respect in the relationship starts to erode. Attraction doesn't thrive where there's complacency. It thrives where there's mutual effort, where both people feel they need to show up and contribute to keep the connection alive. So the goal isn't to make him your world, but to make him part of your world. Let him add to the richness of your life rather than replace it. Keep nurturing the friendships, hobbies, and goals that existed before him. Keep investing in the version of you that he fell for in the first place. That way, when you're together, he feels like he's with someone who is already whole, already vibrant, already living fully. The truth is, love is at its best when it's two people walking side by side, not one person carrying the other. When you hold on to your own identity and keep your world intact, you don't just maintain attraction, you strengthen it, because the person who knows they are with someone complete, someone who doesn't need them but chooses them, will never stop appreciating what they have. One of the most defining choices you make in a relationship is what you're willing to accept. Every time you let something slide that doesn't sit right with you, every time you convince yourself that a little effort is better than none, every time you settle for less than what you truly want, you're teaching the other person how to treat you. And here's the hard truth. People rarely rise above the standards you set. They usually meet you exactly where you allow them to. Attraction isn't just about chemistry, looks, or charm. It's about respect. And respect comes from boundaries. When you hold yourself to a certain standard, you naturally invite people to either step up and meet you there or step aside. But the moment you accept crumbs, you send a clear message. This is enough for me. And once that message is received, there's no incentive for someone to offer you more. Why bake the cake if you've already proven you'll survive on the crumbs? Think about the times you've seen someone stay in a relationship where their needs weren't met. Maybe you've even been there yourself. You tell yourself stories. He's busy, but he cares deep down. He doesn't call much, but that's just the way he is. He's not ready to commit, but maybe if I wait he'll change. Each of those excuses chips away at your own self-worth, because you're prioritizing the hope of what could be over the reality of what is. Hope is powerful, but in relationships, hope without evidence is often just self-betrayal. The person who respects themselves enough to demand more doesn't do it from arrogance. They do it from truth. They know what kind of love they're capable of giving, and they refuse to accept anything less in return. They don't want to be half loved, half prioritized, or half respected. They want the real thing. And the only way to create space for the real thing is by letting go of anything that falls short. There's a misconception that setting high standards pushes people away. The reality is it filters people. The wrong ones will walk because they're unwilling or unable to meet your standards. The right one will stay and rise to the challenge because they value you enough to match your energy. When you're brave enough to walk away from less, you open the door to someone who can give you more. It's also important to realize that settling doesn't just affect the relationship, it affects you. Every time you tolerate less than you deserve, you reinforce the belief that you're not worthy of more. And over time, that belief seeps into everything else. Your confidence, your self-image, your energy. On the other hand, every time you stand firm and say, no, this isn't enough for me, you strengthen the muscle of self-respect. You remind yourself of your value. That inner strength radiates outward, and people can feel it. Picture two people, one who accepts the bare minimum because they're afraid of being alone, and another who demands a deeper, more meaningful connection, even if it means waiting longer. Which person feels more attractive, more magnetic? Always the second, because independence and self-respect are irresistible qualities. They show that your happiness isn't up for negotiation, and that you won't trade your worth for temporary comfort. Love should never feel like begging for scraps. It should feel like abundance. It should feel like two people giving, investing, showing up and building something worth having. And the only way to make that happen is to set your standards high enough that only the right person can stand. So when you're tempted to settle, remind yourself of this. You're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong person. The right person will never make you feel like your standards are a burden. They'll see them as an invitation to rise. And when they do, you won't just have a relationship. You'll have a partnership built on mutual respect, effort and love that doesn't just fill you halfway, but completely. Now let me loop this back to our cheeky opening. How to go down on a guy. The truth is, the best intimacy doesn't come from technique. It comes from presence, from giving without fear, without insecurity, without the baggage of trying to prove yourself. When you hold back the wrong revelations, you protect the space for attraction to grow. And when you give in the right way, whether that's in the bedroom, in your conversations, or in how you love, you create the kind of relationship where both of you rise together. So remember this: the power of what you don't say is just as important as the passion of what you do.